Well, it's time to talk about another magical girl show, and honestly, it's one that's been waiting for quite some time, though. But honestly, before we get into that, let me tell you a little secret about myself. Although it's not going to be a secret once I tell you, but anyways, let me talk about it first. Okay, let's get this out of the way. In 2022, it was an awful year for me. Though honestly, I think it's a safe bet that if it wasn't for anything that I wouldn't have been doing, this would have easily been nothing like that. Now, this isn't an event per se, but it's something I need to address right here and now. Well, I'll address more of it later in the video, but still. Around 2022, I had a lot of hell going for me. It didn't start out that way. As a 22-year-old, there was some things that were going for me, but not in the way that I wanted to get into anyways, though. See, in 2022, I had a lot of magical girl shows up my shoulder that I was watching at the time. Those shows being Madoka Magica, Magic Knight Ray Earth, Mermaid Melody, and of course today's show we're talking about Akazukin Chacha. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because if anything though, this was during the time when I kept getting hell from my pops at the time. While I admit that this wasn't always like every day or anything like that, around this time, whenever I watched something that was shoujo demographic related, I would usually get hell after that. Though I'll probably add more to it when we get into it though. So, you're probably all wondering about Akazuki and Chacha right now. Well, I did say that it was basically a magical girl show like High Guardian Spice done right, and for that reason, among many others, I decided to take a look at it, though. Mostly because I don't think anyone's ever talked about the anime, nor has anyone have ever talked about the manga before. So let's get on to Akazukin Chacha and see how well it holds up today. Now, Akazukin Chacha it was based on the manga by the same name, written and illustrated by Min Ayana, who happens to have done quite the volumes when it comes right down to it. See, this manga has lasted for quite a long time, and thus making it from publisher Cookie, a place where they usually do something like that. However, this is one of those cases where the anime itself is actually one of the longer shows I've seen so far. Not as long as, say, Mermaid Melody, which lasted for 91 episodes, but this series has lasted for 74 episodes. Though honestly, when watching this show back then 2 years ago, or should I say over 2 years ago, I think it's a safe bet that when I get right down to it, this is one that I actually did binge through. To give you an idea of what that's like, that's still a show that I actually binged through like mad at times though. Mostly in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon and sometimes at night when I'm not getting hell at though. Unfortunately, while I will admit though this is anything like that though, this was actually loosely based on the fairy tale Little Red Riding Hood that follows around the magical girl twist. So yeah, like I said before, magical girl shows can reinvent a genre if anything to judge by. So Akazukin Cha-Cha is one of those cases where it does feel like that. And in some ways, that could have been like that. So let's go into Akazukin Cha-Cha and see what it is, though. I will say the series itself does look pretty cutesy, a lot more than, say, HGS in a lot of ways, though. So what's the series about? Well, it's about a little girl by the name of Cha-Cha, who lives in a cottage on the Munchy Munchy Mountain with her guardian and teacher, Survey, who happens to be the world's greatest magician, though. While Cha-Cha seems to be clumsy at her spell, she seems to be like she's getting the hang of it, but she gets fumbled up in the process, though. Instead, she seems to have a little trouble with her spells, although the only way to do so is when she meets with her two friends, Rihei, a boy who can turn himself into a werewolf from the family that comes from them, who has an enormous appetite for a lot of food, and as well as Shine, her young wizard friend. And as such, though, they go through lots of spells together, magical adventures, and so on and so forth. So right away, at least here, we can actually say at least they actually have some stuff happen. A lot of stuff happening in the series. And I mean, a lot of stuff does happen in the series. Unlike High Guardian Spice, this is definitely the case where the show is more on the world building, and what's more, it does feel like a fantasy world, if anything to judge by, though. While Cha-Cha may seem like a bit clumsy at times, though, she doesn't really seem to mind using magic, and while she doesn't get the hang of it a lot of times, though, she does seem like it it would have done like that though. Now, unfortunately, I have to stress enough. While this anime has lasted for a long time though, I have to go right here and now and say this here though. See, the series here, it's really markedly different from the manga. See, in the manga, there actually was more based on comedy than anything, no. See, from what I've heard, even though I haven't read the manga at this case, I have to fully admit, what really sets this series apart from the manga is that it's more magical girl and comedy and fantasy, whereas the manga actually came out by saying it was more on focus on comedy and fantasy, which is basically what happens with a gags manga, if anything, no. Though honestly, this won't be the last time I'll talk about a gags manga that falls under the shoujo category, so there you have it. But honestly, who are the characters of this year's series? Well, there's Chacha, who I mentioned before, while she also turns into a as older as herself, though, and turns into a magical girl. Although she calls herself Magical Princess Warrior here or something like that. She also happens to be pretty good when she fights off some of these enemies when she turns into a magical form. Along the way, though, like I said, Rihei and as well as Shine always help her out though. They're both her best friends, and as you can tell though, she really does care for them, even though both of them have a crush on her. Now, I'm not gonna be one to judge when it comes to something like this though, because I'm not their age limit, but I still think it's pretty cute how these boys have crush on someone that's the same age to them, and yet somehow the girl doesn't notice it though. I always like it when something's role reversal in some way, so it works in his favor. Rihei, as I mentioned before, is a boy who can transform himself into a wolf, though for some reason he gets mistaken as a dog. I get they're both from the dog family, things though, but still, and it's pretty cute to see him in his wolf form. Like if you can see the picture with the one with the wolf pup right there, that's she. That's Rihei right there, though. But also, he happens to have a very enormous appetite when it comes right down to it, though. But he does also have a sort of thing going with Shine when it comes to them fighting over their affection and around that. Shine is also a character that also helps out too, though. And honestly, I think he may be my favorite character of the show. See, Shine is a young wizard who was left with Dorothy when his mentor figure. And honestly, when it comes to being from a witch family, though, he actually is raised to be a wizard, and he does enjoy his housework and everything. Reminds me of my second nephew now I think about it. But he also is more sensible and reasonable of the group, and he's still very loyal though. You know, when first watching this show, I thought at first he was going to be one of those characters that's going to be a snob to both Cha-Cha and Rihei, but no. Shine actually does have his anger, but it's mostly around it's Rihei when he does something stupid. Yeah, Rihei is not really the smartest one of the bulb either, like Cha-Cha, but they do show their intelligence from time to time when it's necessary, though. Though unlike Rosemary, at least there's ditziness and clumsiness do seem like more of a charm than anything, though. Then there's Survey, who I did mention they call us the greatest wizard in the world, though. And that's not me saying that that's in the real world, though. They say that in the show, really. So if anything, this would have been something like that, if anything judged by. See, he also carries this here doll that also happens to be like some kind of that represents to Dorothy, though. And honestly, when it comes right down to it, though, he's actually a pretty fine character in his own way, though. Though for a brief time, he does show he does care about Dorothy, though. Dorothy is, as I mentioned before, was one that actually takes care of Shine. And while she does seem like reminds me of Frankie in some ways from Foster's Home, she actually does show she does care, though. Even if her temper does get the best of her times, but still. She's also very much a relative. Always have a bickering fit with Survey at times, though. But Survey always turns out to be more of the calmer demeanor, whereas Dorothy's always the one always shouting all the time. I always find it very much like the yin and yang, if anything. There's also Survey's doll, Elizabeth, who I'll have to admit, though, was really of something that's actually makes fun at Dorothy at times, though. And it's pretty fun to see it interact, though, at times. But there are some characters out here that I just straight up couldn't get my hands on, though. But let's go over some of the characters I did like, though, as well. There's also Aurine, who who also turns out to be a kid ninja. I'm pretty sure this show came out around Naruto 5 years later. Then maybe there would have been some dynamic to show how much like that. Because despite how tiny she is, she actually is a cute little girl though, and she had a crush on Shine, but Shine doesn't seem to knows it back though. Though she does turn pink though, and she's mostly honest though, and she doesn't seem to hate anyone, regardless of how disputing they can be though. There's Principal and honestly though, despite the big eyes and everything though, seriously, when watching this show, despite being an old lady, her eyes are huge, and it's pretty clear that she's also, oh, not the smartest one, no, but she does show that she's pretty kind in her own way, though. Though at first glance, I thought those were glasses that made her like that, but she's still a fun character in spite of all that, though. There's also, oh, Teacher Rascal, and I'm not kidding, though. See, he's a teacher from the, wait for it, banana class, and he also has a long hair with yellow bow on some episodes though, and I have to stress enough though, he's also one fun teacher. At first glance, he does seem like the kind that would whip the students out of nowhere, but he is fun once you get to see him a little more though. He's also pretty charming at times though, when he also has the chase sets out though. We do meet with other characters along the way though, but honestly, there's just so many characters that have to be out here. Though there is one character that hasn't aged well, Doris. Yeah, Doris is Dorothy's younger brother who usually dresses as a woman, usually to the point where he seems to be in love with Survey at times though. Now I won't lie, what makes this character not age well is the transphobia, and honestly when it comes right down to it, he usually goes ahead and crushes on him though. They really go ahead and establish that he's really trans though, but he's actually more like a transvestite if anything to judge by. Though it's pretty sad when you realize that his name is Doris. Actually, why not just call yourself? Anyways though. But honestly, aside from the transphobia, at least unlike, say, Tiger and Spice with Professor Caraway, at least they don't outright say it, though. This show was made for a kid's audience, despite being a shoujo demographic, so there's that. But there were two characters that I just couldn't get my head around. There was Yako, and before you say anything, no, this isn't Yako from Animaniacs, though I like him more than this Yako. Now, a lot of people do like Yako in this show, but honestly, I just couldn't get into her character that much. She's basically a counterpart version of a Chacha in a lot of ways, though, except she does more well with her magic, and she also wishes Survey could be her student, and also one hopes him falling in love with her would be the case, though. Yako, you do realize Survey is a grown man, and if anything, it's more creepy when you realize that you have a crush on someone who, that can't fall in love with you. I know this is something I'll bring up in another video I'll be talking about in this month, but I'm just saying, I always find it cringy when a kid tries to have an adult falling in love with a kid, though. Seriously, it's really disgusting and creepy a lot of times. But she does have some funny moments, so I guess you can make up for that. She doesn't fumble up her magic as much as Cha-Cha, though, but she does come around a lot of episodes. But I thought at first glance that they would at least try to get along, but the only time that she does get along with Cha-Cha is almost near the end of the show, which felt little too late for me at times, though. Now I get that not every character is going to follow the character's footsteps and like them, though, but I always find it grating at times when it comes right down to it. And then there's also Marine, who is a mermaid who can change herself into a human when her chill dries out. Okay, that's not a problem I have with the show. I have to say, that's actually a pretty cool power. She also has that one that she also uses whenever she wants to do something in her own advantage. Yeah, magic is a relatively common thing in this year's show, so if you're expecting them to explain it, they'll probably explain it all in the way as time goes on, though. But okay, aside from that, though, Marine is also very oblivious. Like, whenever Rihei, even though she has a huge crush on Rihei to the point where it's obsession, she also doesn't seem to realize that she doesn't seem to see that Rihei does turn himself into a wolf, and yet she beats the shit out of him when he's in the werewolf form, and when going back to the boy form, she does already. So you're probably wondering, how did she discover Rihei, though? Well, it's mostly because in a beach episode, yes, a beach episode in a kids show would have shock, and instead of just going ahead and asking him everything else, though, she decides to gravitate onto him faster than you could say about that. Thankfully, she's in a different class, though, but it's pretty sad that she's also in a lot of these episodes, to the point where it's obvious she won't stop for an answer to say no. She does have someone that does like her, though, in the sea world, though, but I still have yet to wonder, how do you put up with this girl's behavior? And look, I'm not saying that every character has to be goody two shoes. There are some characters that some people will gravitate on and some that won't. But I just feel like it's unnecessary for them to go so far out of their leap just to say that all the time, though. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting the show to be all hunky glory, but still. But even with that said, there has been a lot of characters after, though. There were also some other characters along the way, though. Like, for example, I didn't mention the magical princess form, which is basically Chacha and her older adult self, though. So at least there's that, but this was never in the manga, so you can definitely tell that there was a lot for as well, though. And honestly, speaking of Naruto, you won't believe this, though, there was actually a character named Naruto, which was Poppy's younger brother. Who is Poppy? He's basically one of the characters that comes in one of the OVA episodes, and honestly, he doesn't show up in the actual anime series. He just shows up in the OVA series itself, though. I would tell you that's a pretty shame, though, but still. There's also Choo Choo, which is Chacha's younger sister, who never seems to appear, though. And there's Nami, Marine's younger sister. Am I the one who feels like these here characters came out way before the big three did? Seriously, now we have Nami, Marine's younger sister, and yet we don't see her in the anime. Though I wonder if she's as hot-headed as the Nami we know in One Piece, but we'll never know. I don't think it's a bad sign to say this, though, but it's really sad we never get to see these characters. I get that it was mostly filler because honestly there was mostly Magical Girl, which was not in the manga, and this would have been like that, but still, it's pretty sad, though. And there's also some other characters on the way, but if I listed every character here, we'd be here all day. So this series does have a lot of things going for it, if you haven't already guessed, though. So you're probably wondering if this show is episodic, though. Not really. This show does follow each episode's formula. Basically, Chacha has to find a way to use her magic, try to get into it, though, and so on and so forth. And yes, she has to save the day in spite of all that, though. This isn't a big deal or anything, but I'm kind of sad that we never get to see that much of it in the manga of what goes on, though. Like, I don't mind comedies, though, if anything, though, but honestly, when it comes to the magical girl aspect, I think I prefer it that way. Too bad it only had it for 2 seasons, though. Yeah, this show lasted for 3 seasons, if that wasn't obvious from how many episodes there were. And honestly, with 3 seasons, I really binged through this show like mad at the time, though. I guess because of how good it was, I wanted to see for myself. Though honestly, it never aired where I'm from. Despite Akazukin Chacha lasting for a long time, it wasn't really popular a lot of places. The only places that seem to be popular right there with Chacha would have to be from Japan, even though I don't hear them talk about it as much, and the other one being the Philippines. And from what I've heard, Akazukin Chacha is basically the SpongeBob of the Philippines. Yeah, it was really that popular. And to be honest, I think this show may have been the inspiration for a lot of shows to come when they don't seem to get that, though. Now, I would say this show was dubbed into English, except there's just one problem. See, when binging through this show, I didn't know there was an English dub until someone online said it was actually in Tagalog, which, if you don't know, Tagalog dubs were actually known to dub a lot of stuff, though honestly they haven't really dubbed a lot of stuff lately. I'm guessing they defunct a long time ago, but even with that, and no, I can't tell you who voices who, though, mostly because the Wikipedia itself is pretty obscure when it comes to the English voice actors. Maybe they weren't popular or anything like that along the way, but I wouldn't know. And honestly, when it comes right down to it, the English dub is pretty much lost media, at least a lot of these episodes. Yeah, dubbing this series was not easy, probably, but this was before Cha's actually counterpart, Sailor Moon, actually had a worse dub at the 90s. Now, I'm not saying that you have to dub every anime out there. Hell, the series I'm going to be talking about next Monday on my birthday is basically one of those shows that I actually really don't mind having that with that. On the other hand, though, this is one case where I have to confess. This series only had 8 or 9 episodes that were found, and about the rest of them, which is again 77 episodes, and yet 8 or 9 episodes have been found into English, have never been found though. So you can pretty much bet it's lost media at this point though. Though it did air on Cartoon Network in the Philippines, so maybe they may have a lot more episodes there, but the copies I found on YouTube would look like they came out of VHS, which isn't surprising given that this was in the 90s. Man, I wish I have VHS tapes nowadays still. Yeah, that's really the thing though. Though honestly, this is also the case where I have to confess, I really didn't mind watching this show as much as I thought it would have though. Although, there was something I want to talk about too. The animation. While it does seem a little janky in some places, I don't think it's that bad anything though. This was made by Studio Gallup, who you may know for making the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. That's what I mostly seen that from. And to be honest, this wasn't the only show I watched with a magical girl in it though that had something around that time though. See, there were a few shows that actually did have that I watched this show in particular though. Those being Nurse Ruko SOS, which is another magical girl show I'll probably get to one of these days. And there's also another magical girl show that has something about the magical girl with a ribbon in here, though. So, yeah, this also one case where they actually had a lot of things going for it. They did do other shows like Coda, Chacha, and the like, and they also did the movie Windaria. Yeah, some of these are pretty obscure, if anything, though. At least Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more popular though honestly that could be the reason why a lot of people remember that, but still. Though, here comes the bad news. You might be wondering why I'm feeling so dreaded all of a sudden when it comes to something like this though. See, I don't like talking about myself this much. This won't be the last time I'll talk about that's why I feel so dreaded though. So you're gonna have to bear with what I have to say. So you're gonna have to and also you're gonna have to take this with somebody who didn't want to talk about this. Okay, in 2022, like I said in the beginning of the video, this was not a good year for me. I don't think I should speak for anybody when it comes to the years though, what goes on, but still. Anyways, back to what I was saying though. The reason why I never talked about this here show is, before I didn't talk about videos before then, around say 2021 or 2022, or I wanted to talk about videos on my own, there was just one problem with that. I had hell. And by hell, I don't mean as in I go through hell faster than you can say about anything else. No, I meant like every time in 2022 I watched something that was shoujo or josei related, I immediately get into trouble though. Yeah, I don't like talking too much about myself this time though, so bear with me for a little bit longer. Now, when it comes to the shoujo demographic shows, I would normally get hell when watching a lot of stuff that were female oriented. This was when my pops was still around, and I don't want to shit on his grave or anything, but this was during the time when I was going through a lot of depression. I had a lot of things on my mind. I kept getting in trouble when I watched something that I wanted to take a break from when doing my chores and everything. I did my job every once in a while. Basically, whenever I try to do something that I enjoy, I immediately get in trouble for it. And I'm in my 20s. Now, before you say anything, I guess some people are going to say in their adult years you're going to get in trouble regardless. But honestly, this was just not a good year for me. Even when I watched some of the shows I did enjoy that were magical girl related, like say the shows I did watch: Little Witch Academia, Madoka Magica, Cardcaptor Sakura, Magic Knight Ray Earth, Mermaid Melody, and yes, Akazukin Chacha. All of these shows are, and from what I can tell, are all magical girl shows. And I did watch some other shows like Kodacha and The Wallflower, which were also shoujo related, but also I had another show called that I was watching on my mind though, and that I wanted to watch for a while: Princess Jellyfish. Though that was a josei show, if anything to judge by. So you might be wondering, why did I bring this up, if anything, of 2022? Well, that's because in 2022, I kept getting in trouble with my pops. He would usually tell me stuff that's not really anything I should do anything. He would usually yell at me for something I didn't have responsibility over, and he would try and watch me at times. Like, even behind my back when it comes to having a video camera around. Yeah, this was pretty uncomfortable for me, if anything to judge by. And I don't like saying this on behalf, though, and I'm not asking for sympathy or anything. I'm just saying why I personally had a hard time going through this. It is, though. Yeah, there's a reason why I don't like doing many videos as much, like I thought I would have, though. But despite that, however, I really want to get these videos and to help entertain some people in my audience, though. I didn't want to do this to people, talk about myself, though. I'll be damn honest with you guys. If it wasn't for that depression I have, even though I still go through depression at times, I still wouldn't have this problem if it were so today, though. Now, honestly, I can't really speak on too much of this, though, but I will say when it comes to Akazukin and Chacha, this was why I had to say I had to binge through the show like mad at the time. I didn't want to go through this show like mad at the time, because if I did, I'd probably miss out on something that I always skim over. But honestly, that's one of the reasons why I never talked about any videos before then. So if you're wondering why I didn't do any videos prior from 2022 or before then, there's your answer. I kept getting in trouble a lot at home, mostly for doing a lot of things. Not to say that there weren't any good things that happened, but there were other things besides me getting into trouble. Like how I tried to take care of my dog, how my Nana wasn't home for about a month and a half at the time because there was something going on that I don't want to talk about. And I also had to take care of my younger sister. And every time there was no one else downstairs, though, I would just go upstairs just to sulk what's going on in my mind. Yeah, I don't like talking about my feelings that much, but whenever someone says to me I should talk about something, I try talking to them about it. But it's nothing else, though. There's also another reason why I don't do vent videos, because I like a certain other user who tried to put her problems out in the opening, saying it's everyone else's fault. That's why I don't do vent videos. Hell, I would never do a vent video. I'm not asking for your sympathy, but what I am saying is that Akazukin Chacha was still something I would have enjoyed a lot more back then. I'm not saying it's an awful show if you guys are thinking that. It's still a pretty good show if you're into something that's high guarding spice done right. But honestly, that's what made me have the bad memories of going through hell a lot of the time. Yeah, there's a reason why I don't like talking about this stuff that much. Still, I'm glad I got to watch all of this show. It wasn't easy, but thankfully I got to watch it. If there's one thing I want to take away from this, though, is that maybe that's one of the reasons why I did my Magical Girl podcast list. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's for everybody. I mean, if you're someone like me or Mishia or anybody who's into Magical Girl shows, or in this case want to see something that's up to your stance, then you can look at my playlist to see what it's like, though. I won't say every show is gonna hit everybody like it does for me, even though High Guardian Spice is the only show in that playlist that I don't have that's something I enjoy. But it's really something that I have to say. That's why I want to do this podcast list. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm dreaded or anything, but when it comes to something like this, I had to get my feelings out for that, though. I would have been in a better mood if it wasn't for the fact that, not just because I was watching something that was girl related and got in trouble for it, but also because I wanted to show that I can do so. Yeah, I don't know what it is with me, but that's why I always say I'm a tomboy, though, because I'm always doing boyish activities, even though I want to do something that's girl related at times. Not everything I'm going to do is girl related, because I am still masculine in my own way while still being very woman-like, but even so, I still think of that as such. And hopefully the next video I won't dread it. Oh, son of a bitch! Okay, if you don't follow me, yeah, the next video I'm going to be doing, I might as well get over with, will be Velma. But until then, I'm sorry if I couldn't be more in a better mood, though. Then again, it is Monday, my least favorite day, so maybe that's to be expected. Other than that, though, I really can't stress enough, though. But with that said, however, thank you all so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope to see you all next time. Hopefully the video will be out by Friday, and hopefully when I do that birthday video, I'll have it streamed by then, though. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay flamingo-tastic. See ya!